hello, what's this?
Do you mind? That's a friend of mine.
You left in such a hurry, I forgot to give you the keys to the flat. Thank you for a lovely evening. I'll phone you when I'm free.
What's all that about, then?
Well, we've known each other for ages. We see a lot of each other.
Well, you and that gorgeous thing?
She's a very good friend of mine.
Look at those legs!
That is a very lovely person.
You're telling me?
And I'll tell you something else. He's much more settled since he's had the operation.
I like that programme. Too bad the series ended. Well, anyway, that's enough of the comedy for tonight. And now for the reality. Us. Of the four of us in the studio this evening, two are transsexuals, awaiting sexual conversion surgery, and the other two, including myself, are what are known as sex changers, woman born of man. We're first going to show you a short film telling you something about each one of us.
Since about the age I was 15, I always thought of myself as homosexual, although even amongst gay people I always felt just that little bit different. Or however much I tried to be male, even for the gay people, I was still too feminine. As homosexuals want other men, of course, and even however much I tried to act like a man, I never seemed to be able to manage it for long. And it got to the stage where I was almost paranoid, such like on buses and trains. I used to think people were talking about me.
Want to try this?
Yes, can I try this thing?
That's the changing room.
Thanks.
Okay.
And I got to the stage where I used to get off the train at the next stop because I felt as if I was trapped. And when I used to see the pictures of sex changes in magazines and newspapers, I thought, God, I should never look like that. Of course, I didn't realise it was such a slow process. But now, thank goodness, I've started on that slow process. And I'm hoping to have my operation very soon. But even after that, there are other options that one must have: bust operation, throat operation, and the removal of facial hair, which I have now had. Oh, nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
And it was through that having electrolysis that I decided to take it up myself, and I've now been trained as an electrologist so that when I've had my operation, I can go full-time to helping other transsexual people like myself to overcome this problem, also of hair, makeup, etc. Because to have electrolysis is almost non-existent on the National Health, and it's so terribly expensive. So that's what I hope to do in the very near future.
Boys!
At 17, still not knowing which way I was or why I was or anything, I went to seek medical advice.
Look at you, you look like something out of the black and white minstrel show. Come here.
And they told me to get a rough, tough type job. And I worked in an iron foundry in a copper refinery. But the men instinctively took to me as a female.
Oh, he's playing football. Not coal mines.
And eventually I got married. It was a failure. My wife had to remind me that we hadn't been lovemaking for some time and things like this, and I'd say, well, anything to oblige. But the act made me completely physically sick. But she already had a daughter, which I had adopted, I had one physical son of my own.
I never win.
Later on in the marriage, she had another son by a man friend of hers, which I've looked after since he was 4 days old. I'm very happy with the domestic side of life.
Well, the past was very interesting, doing character work and things like that for television, BBC and Thames and so on, doing fashion shows and things like that, even working with the Irish government. But I find, you know, that, well, it seems as if it was a different person now. Very interesting was the fact of going down to Bournemouth. I went down there for convalescence at Christmas. I thought, well, I've got to get away from things. Got down there and I found that I could only stay in the hotel for one night. But next morning, I thought to myself, my God, I ought to be running around Bournemouth looking for somewhere to stay. And I thought, no, I'll let intuition take over, so I just went to the ladies' hairdressers. And while I'm there, I'm talking to the woman, and I let her know that I was a sex change. And she said, well, darling, I think you're marvellous, and don't worry about the hotel. I've got friends that have taken over a hotel for Christmas. And that was it. I went there. And of course, it was the most marvellous thing that could have happened, because I met Barry. And I'll never forget the night of meeting him. I was sitting in the ballroom and he came up and said, oh, you're not drinking. And I thought, well, I'm going to let you know I'm expensive. So I thought, darling, I drink Bacardi. He just turned around and said, well, so you drink Bacardi, so what? Hello? Hello? Barry? Hello, darling. Oh, I'm fine, thanks. Super. Marvellous. Well, shall I wear that black dress? And that necklace? All right, then. Yeah. What sort of time will you be home, then? All right, then. All right, then. Okay. I'll see you later, then. Bye. Huh? Do you mind? I'll see you later. Bye. And then we sat there talking, and then after a while I thought, well, I better tell him. So I said, well, you know, you realise what I am, don't you? I'm a sex change. And he just sort of looked at me and said, well, so what? You're female and I like you, and that was it. And from there we went on. Mind you, I do still get a bit moody sometimes and can't bear anybody near me. But other than that, I'm happy. You know, it's marvellous. It's really marvellous to be myself at last.
Beauty! Beauty! A transsexual no longer, I'm now a woman, period. Well, without the period. Always feeling different, and my transvestism haunted me. I grew up bisexual, still am. I wasn't intersex, but many world figures have been intersex. Leonardo, Michelangelo, also Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon, Hitler. Like I did, the intersex often strives to accentuate the masculine. So after university, I left for South Africa, founded the European National Movement, and became an officer on the Army Reserve, yet wrote poetry, a musical comedy, had a broken marriage and many love affairs. Acting and teaching in Bermuda in 6 to 9, I was paid to resign as hormones were feminizing me. Later in Spain, I flew to Casablanca on impulse, and was doctored there in June 1970. The decision to change came in Saudi Arabia in 66. In 68, a medium foretold the exact date. I aspired to a simple female life, but since then she has been foretelling a special role for me in the reconstruction following worldwide collapse in 1978 to 79. On these matters, past figures have communicated with me through her, including Queen Victoria, Dr. Verwoerd, Teilhard de Chardin, and a chastened and wiser Adolf Hitler. I'm even told that I've been sent from another world where sexes don't exist, and that the sex change is the early model of a higher race uniting the two sexes in one. But first to the employment department, where all sex changes are listed disabled. Maybe for my next trick I'll change into a pumpkin. Well, how abled can you get? We've now been joined in the studio by our two guests, Dr. Schlicht, who is the chairman of Access, an organisation that helps people with sexual problems of all kinds, and is a consultant psychiatrist. And our other guest, Mr. Leo Absey, the MP for Pontypool. And we are now going to show them, and of course you too, a film of a recorded discussion that we four had about 3 weeks ago. The Transex Liberation Group is to form a contact between people who have transsexual problems, and also to contend for two very, very important points in the transsexual life and in the way in which transsexuals are dealt with by society, both before an operation, a sexual conversion surgery that is, of course, and afterwards when they enter into full womanhood. I think that is quite simply what the Transex Liberation Group is about. Now, Jan and Rachel here have not yet had the sexual conversion surgery, which is referred to all the time by transsexuals as the operation. So if we talk about the operation, you'll know we're talking about that and nothing else. Jan, could you give the viewers some brief idea of the way you find life at the moment as a pre-op transsexual?
Yes, I find life at the moment, waiting for this op, is like living on the edge of a volcano.
Yes.
Because if anything happened to me, if I got knocked down by a bus or car or anything, or taken ill, and I was put into hospital, and they found out I was still biologically male,
yes,
I would be put into a men's ward,
yes,
which would be too embarrassing for words.
yes,
Or if I wasn't put in a men's ward, I'd be put in a sort of side ward, and you're made to feel an oddity, whereas I feel I'm not an oddity.
yes,
Just,
yes.
you see?
Mm-hmm. And coming to you, Rachel, what do you feel about this very difficult period for transsexuals, I feel, because you're obviously not a man now, and yet you've got this sort of roadside repairs to go through, if nothing else, until you can really feel 100%.
Well,
it's a very difficult period, isn't it?
it is very difficult because your personality keeps changing.
Yes.
It's sort of a swap back and two, and it's sort of in a limbo stage and not
Yes.
quite knowing where you're going, you know. It's
Yes,
like walking
exactly.
around a revolving door and never being able to get out of it, you know. And
I think,
Yes,
can I just
all right.
interrupt? I think this is the worst period for us, is when we're waiting.
It's all.
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
It's just
Oh.
long
It's
period
awful.
when we have got to pretend to society
Yes.
that we are female.
It's true, I agree with you. I felt worse.
So
It's-
when you go out and you, for a drink, say, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, you know,
It's always in the back of
And-
your mind.
there are always various people around that do recognise
Yes.
the fact that you're still in the male stage.
Yes.
And if you go to use the toilet, everybody immediately turns to see which one you're going to use, you know.
Yes.
And things like this, you know, it can get rather embarrassing at times
Yes.
that way.
Yes. Well, I do feel that for the sake of this particular programme, we should make a distinction between this, I suppose, unavoidable problem, which is really your slow evolution from male to female. I don't see what one can do about that. But there are certain matters which really devolve upon society, which I feel personally, and I don't know whether you do, make the transsexuals trip, if you like, from one side to the other a little more difficult than it need be. I'm thinking in particular at the moment of this problem of work. Obviously one has to keep going, and there's this problem of in what sex do you work in, and how do you carry on for national insurance cards and things of that kind. Could you tell me, Jan, how you've handled that?
Yes, well, it's you write to the insurance people saying that you are under a doctor
Yes.
for transsexualism and giving the doctor's name, and they will refer back to him, and then they'll send you insurance card, which is quite simple. But when it gets to getting a job, that's the hard part, because you are exploited. Because if you are lucky enough to find an employer that will employ you, he knows that you are sort of under his thumb. Therefore, he's not going to offer you as much money as he would the girl next door, for instance.
Yes, yes.
And that's where I think it's so unfair.
Well, I haven't had any work problems so far.
Well, I haven't,
you
because
know.
I'm self-employed. That's one of the reasons why I'm self-employed, because I know that if I wanted a job, I know other transsexuals that have had this problem.
Well, when I first decided to change from male to female, I had the problem that was presented to me, was quite frankly this, that the psychiatrist told me that I could not possibly be put forward for an operation unless I'd worked for 1 year at least as a woman, and that I couldn't be given an insurance card as a female until I had already worked as a female for 3 months. And this to me is terribly wrong, because, as you probably agree, that most people, if not all people I should say, in my own opinion, who go through this phase of changing are under great pressures, nerve pressures, you know,
I agree with you there.
changing
It's
and so
awful.
on.
It's awful.
And for somebody to say to you, and particularly somebody in the medical profession, that you have in fact got to go out and hoodwink the society, because this is what it amounts to. The only way one can obtain a card, a female card, without the say-so of a psychiatrist, is to say that you've lost it, that you've come from the Channel Islands or from Ireland or somewhere else like that, and make up some sort of story and hope that you can survive for 3 months when the psychiatrist will give the say-so to the Department of Employment. I refused to do that on principle, because I felt that it was demanding too much of me. I just refused, as it were, to participate in a sort of deception. And I don't know whether you people feel the same way about that.
Well, I did, because I had an awful time. I mean, I didn't. I went and applied for another, a female card. But I mean, the man just sort of looked at me and was very peculiar and offy, and I still haven't got a card. I mean, I haven't had to need the thing because I've got married and everything. But
yes.
Well, I think this insurance card is not one of the big problems.
No, it's not a big problem.
Because it can be got over.
Yes, people know about the fact there are sex changes, and if they recognise you as a sincere person with a problem, they'll accept you. This is not really proving anything about your viability to live as a woman.
Can I just say that we're talking about, this is all under the National Health, but if you've got the money to pay for it,
well, that's
you don't have to wait.
No. Oh, it does. It does definitely open doors.
Of course,
if you've got the money.
Well,
I mean, I was going up the wall beforehand, and all that business of that waiting in limbo.
Well, now, Laura,
well, she knows how I was.
That brings me to the other aspect. We've talked about the pre-operation aspect of the problem of working and surviving. Now, you had your operation, I believe, when?
November.
In November. And you're married now.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty quick off the mark, isn't
I know. It all happened so suddenly.
That's fine. Well, now this comes to the other, much more lasting problem of the marital status of sex changes in society. Where did you get married? In a registry office or a church?
St Pancras Town Hall.
Oh, I see. And what about birth? Did they ask for your birth
No,
certificate?
darling. I was petrified they would, as somebody clapped me on the shoulder and say, Holloway.
Now, well, could you tell us something about the, as you understand it, the
I know.
status of sex changes in regard to marriage?
Well, I know that really by law that my marriage doesn't exist.
Well, that's not quite true.
Well, I mean, all right.
It's almost true.
Yeah, but I mean, all right, I've done it, and I've got married, which is something which psychologically was marvellous for me. But at the same time,
I haven't committed a legal offence, but
No.
legally the marriage doesn't exist, and therefore I have no standing as a married woman, which is ridiculous.
Well, that isn't.
I mean, if anything
yes,
happened...
that's not quite true either. What we have to try and get across to the viewers, which is very difficult, I think, even for any of us to understand, and that is the difference between legality and lawfulness. In other words, a sex change marrying a man is legal.
Yes, but then I can still go
but
and
it's
get
not
married
lawful.
to a woman, darling, can't I?
Well, possibly you could
Well, I
technically.
mean, I can, technically.
Well, yes.
I mean, I'd hate getting into drag to do it.
No. Well, I think perhaps at this juncture, if I just told the viewers a bit about the
Yeah.
background to this problem, because it's rather complicated. As you all remember, and as no doubt the viewers do, in February 1970, April Ashley, or as she was then a Mrs. Corbett, had this case, this rather cause célèbre, involving her own marriage, in which the judge, Justice Ormrod, who is a doctor, decided that she was not a female for the purpose of marriage, but that she was a woman in a social sense, but not in that particular sense. And therefore, the marriage was annulled. And Dr. Randall, whom we all know, who is a foremost psychiatrist in this field, did in fact define her as a male transsexual homosexual. Well, we can discuss that later perhaps. Now, the marriage was annulled. Not long after that, Alexander Lyon, who was a Labour MP for York, brought in a bill called the Nullity of Marriage Bill, which by listing all the possible grounds for nullity in English law and leaving out of the same sex, it would be impossible for a later sex change marriage to be decided by a nullity decree. The reason why he did this was because under a nullity decree, maintenance can be granted by the court to the wife, and he felt it was preposterous if the wife is in fact a male, that one male should be ordered to pay maintenance to another biological male. Well, that was the situation, but I was in the House of Commons on the 5th of April 1971 when the report stage of this bill came up, and Alexander Lyon got up and did a very extraordinary thing. He said he changed his mind, having thought about it, no doubt to some extent under our prompting, and decided to bring in an amendment to his own bill, actually countermanding the very purpose for which he'd introduced the bill. And he did add an amendment that nullity could be granted to a person of the same sex, meaning sex changes. Now, therefore, under English law, a sex change marriage is certainly legal because you can obtain maintenance at the discretion of the court should it come to a nullity decree. And as Peter Rawlinson, who was then, I believe, the Attorney General, said that this certainly would not apply to homosexual marriages, if any homosexual went through such a marriage. And of course the point is that the reason why it wouldn't apply is that homosexuals are males. And so we have this absurd situation
But I'm not
where...
homosexual.
No, exactly. We have this absurd situation
have been.
where sex changers can marry and their marriage can be nullified and they can receive maintenance. Now this may sound very desirable, but what is to me so iniquitous, and I don't know what you feel about this, is that nullity normally applies to what a person does and not to what they are.
Oh,
And this means that you could live for 10 or 20 years with your husband and he can, as it were, terminate the marriage at the drop of a hat, if you like, by merely saying, my wife was once a male, and you can do nothing about it.
Yeah, but I think that's terrible.
To me, that's very, very bad.
Well, I think it's morally and spiritually wrong.
Yes, yes, I quite... What do you think? You haven't...
I mean, we're not
come up with
machines.
this
We're
problem
not
yet.
machines, we're human beings.
Yes, exactly. What do you feel about that?
Well, I think the law will change quite soon because I think...
Well, I hope you're right. I rather doubt it.
Oh, I think it
hope
will.
so.
I think because we're not because, but as we're in the common market, we could go to France and get married quite legally.
Well, that's what I was told to go to France. But I
Yes,
didn't want to go to France.
that's why I think it's going to, the law will change very quickly.
But why should we have to go
Yes.
to another country to get
But this is
these
it.
things that, you know?
This is it.
And I've never been outside of England. If I went to France or anywhere like that, I'd get off
Yes,
the
but
boat
I mean,
or
that
the
means
plane.
you've got to
I
go
wouldn't
to
know
extreme
what
lengths,
to do, where
but
to go.
on top of all the other aggravation, to just do something quite normal with your human
Well,
feelings.
that's what I mean.
You
I
don't-
mean, I'd still be at a loss if I went to another country because, you know, not being outside Britain before, I don't know any other country at all, you know, so I wouldn't know where I was going or what I was doing there, you know. And I don't
Well,
speak
I think
any other
all we
language.
want is just to be recognised as the
As human
same
beings.
as
women.
As
Yes.
women.
Yes.
That's all we ask.
Yeah.
Not to be
Yes.
treated as some poor thing with
Yes.
A
pity.
zombie, darling.
Yes.
Some separate species.
And the right to change our birth certificate is another strong point. you know,
Why do you
it's
feel
the-
so strongly about birth certificates? Could you tell us
Well,
why?
it's your status symbol, isn't it, you know?
Yes.
When you go for jobs, things like this, various positions, apply for different things, at times you're asked to produce your marriage lines
Yes.
and your birth certificate and things like this. And if you turn up being a female and they say, well, can we have your birth certificate, dear? And you say yes, and you get your birth certificate out, and it says male on it. You see,
Yes.
then immediately they turn around and say, well, what's going on here? You know, what have we got? You know, they don't know what you are or...
Yeah, well, I think it is that awful question. That's hard over your being
Yes.
what you are.
Well, they
As
don't
if, you
know
know.
because they look at the birth certificate and they... Oh, you've got the wrong one, dear, you know. Can
Well,
I
that's
have
what
yours?
do. If
I
go
don't
along-
want your
darling,
husband.
if I
you
go
know.
along with that marriage certificate and a birth certificate and then look from one to the other, they just don't know what the hell they are, will they?
Well, this is it, you see.
It's
you
ridiculous.
produce them and
It's
they give it, you
farcical,
better
really.
say you've
Well,
got
it
your
is far.
husband.
That's why I say
It's
the
a
law will have to
farce.
change because it's getting more and more common now.
But of course it is. We're not a minority.
Well, we are a minority, but it's
I don't think so, darling. I mean, there's only 4 of us here, but there's an awful lot of people that are...
there's hundreds and possibly
Well, of course
thousands.
there are.
I know
Of course
that.
there are. I mean, it must be reaching the stage where they've got to open their minds a bit more and make some sort of recognition towards the fact that this is happening, and it's
Well, that's one of the
we're
reasons
here.
we're here this evening, isn't it? To sort
I
of
mean,
get
we're
over
not
to the public that we
Well,
are
not,
responsible.
yes, but we're not
people.
just a myth or one of these send-up programs on the television. We're not a drag act or anything like
What
that.
do you feel about the general portrayal, or should we say innuendos, about sex changes in popular comedy programs on television, for example?
Well, I think yes,
I mean-
I think it cuts both ways.
Yes.
I mean, it's like all these things. All right, case of April Ashley and so on. That caused an awful lot of bother for us now, but she was very brave because at the time she went ahead and opened up the way for things which are now beginning to come to pass.
Do you feel these...
The same thing with these things.
Yes.
I think, all right, that they... somebody once said there's no such thing as bad publicity. That is true. That is
Yes.
true.
Yes.
You get all this business of people sort of having a laugh and a titter at and so on at the business of sex changes, but at the same time it is opening up people's minds to the fact that these things do exist.
Yes. What
There's
do you feel
always
about
good
that,
comes after.
Rich?
Well, I don't mind how much they...
You don't mind being laughed at? in
No,
an
I
oblique
don't
sort of
mind
way?
how much they send up and things like
Well, you
this,
get
know.
past it after a while
I
anyway,
mean,
don't you, darling?
it's one of
Yes.
those things of life, you know.
Yes, because do you feel with me that the what I feel is rather disconcerting about this sort of treatment, funny though these situations are, that it works on the erroneous assumption that all sex changes are rather, for want of a better word, all fairies, you know, they're
Well,
they're madly
yes.
sort of camp
People do
with
get this
homosexual
impression.
boys who just can't survive as men and want to be some sort of female substitute and be mutilated, and that's really all they're after. Now, this is the implication I feel, and that sex changes are constantly living in a highly glamorized, unreal world. Remember that film Myra Breckenridge, where he changes back at the end, or she does, and she says, I was all right in Technicolor, but no good in black and white. And that is, you know, as long as you're
Yes, but-
highly made up and camping it up, as the expression has it, that this is what being a woman is about for these people, because it isn't a bit
Well,
like that.
of course it's not.
Married.
Darling, of course it's not.
and
My marriage is as normal as blueberry pie.
Yes, exactly.
Barry's never happier than
Yes.
when I'm without makeup and I've got a turban on, dear, and I'm in the kitchen.
Yes, you're not
And I
walking up and
feel
down the lounge in
better.
high-heeled shoes all
You're
the time.
joking, dear. Make me feet ache.
Yeah, well, this is the picture
Look,
that
pair of
society
slippers
has of
on.
us
This
because
is why I
of the
feel the
publicity.
jokes are all right. It's
Yeah, but
just
I can't live
they
like
do
that.
need to know
The way
a bit
they put
more.
them
Yes, but that's like walking on a
Yes,
tight,
you know.
on a tight wire all the
What
time,
is?
isn't it? Well, as if you've got to do this all the big glamour thing with all the makeup and
Yes.
everything, and that's the way you live. You don't live like
No,
that.
it's
Of
far
course
from
you
being
don't.
glamorous.
I mean, you get the ups
I
and
mean,
downs and everything, and you know.
Why did you actually want to become a woman, if I could ask you that?
But darling, I didn't want to become a woman. I was told that I had to have this done, otherwise I was going out of my mind. I didn't understand myself. I didn't know what the hell I was.
Would you, if you had the choice, would you prefer to be a woman or a man?
I prefer to be a woman.
Hmm.
I feel right. I think the woman's got the
Yes.
best deal anyway.
Yes.
But I mean, I've had to live the other way, and it was awful. It was, well, it was horrible. It was horrible. I used to
Yes.
loathe it. I used to loathe myself and loathe society. And
Well, quickly before we wind up, do you prefer to be a woman, or how do you feel? Did you sort of choose to be a woman, or do you feel it's something you can't really do much about?
It's something I can't do anything about.
Yes.
Society says I've got to be either male or
Yes,
female.
exactly. And what do you think about that, Rachel?
They're my views, and I've always felt feminine and...
Yes. But did you sort of choose to be a woman?
Well,
Like-
yes.
Yes.
You know,
I
I mean,
don't
this
know.
is what I felt
Speaking-
I
I don't
was.
think
and-
Speaking for myself,
I don't
I
think
don't
you've
think
really got
I
a
did.
choice.
And I'm being frank about it. Rather an unfortunate choice of phrase.
No, but I mean, if you say
I very
choose,
much doubt whether women
then-
do have the best deal in
No, they
life.
don't.
And if
Men
I
are
had a
much
choice, I'm
Oh, I
not quite
don't
sure
think so,
what I
darling.
choose to be.
No, I would
It's very
hate it.
dubious. I just feel that one has to be oneself, and that it's a matter of being a more together person. People often ask me,
Yes, I do
are you
think-
happier? I don't think that's relevant.
No, because
I don't
happiness-
think
I'm
no.
exactly.
happy.
One
happiness
is
is a
not
byproduct
necessarily
of
any,
anything,
yes,
anyway.
it's a byproduct, and
But I do think you're definitely
what
driven.
matters is, are you your true self as much as you can be as a
that's it.
human being?
That is,
Yes.
yes.
Are you really
Certainly.
together?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're an ant, there's no good beefing about the fact you're not an elephant. You have to accept the fact you're an ant, right?
Yeah.
And we have this.
I've just
This-
accepted completely that I'm me. I mean,
we have,
this is me.
yes, we have this bias towards the female, and you can't do anything about it, and therefore you must accept it, whether we want to be or whether we choose, etc. Beside the point. Now, in closing, I would just like to point out that we've been talking about transsexuals. You might have got the impression that they are some particular peculiar kind of group out on their own, as it were. On the contrary, I feel that transsexualism is really the tip of an iceberg of human sexuality. Every one of us is an intersex. There is no pure male or no pure female. Both of us, as it were, are pulsating towards a middle ground. This is what life is about. And in fact, in my view, the sex act itself is a transsexual act, in which one endeavours to become and to absorb the beloved. In a way, we are all transsexuals, and the few of us here tonight are just typical of that rather extreme form of transsexualism which occurs in society from time to time. Dr. Schlicht, could we have your immediate response to the tape? Any initial reactions?
My immediate response.
Yes.
My immediate response is a little bit critical, I think, because
Yes.
being a professional person, I'm not very happy about the use of some of the words. I mean, intersexual, bisexual,
Yes.
and transsexual. I think there's some very loose thinking here.
Yes.
I mean, what you're talking about tonight is transsexualism.
Mhm.
You have introduced the concept of intersexualism and adduced a lot of important historical examples, and of course I would utterly disagree with you about this. I
Yes.
don't think these people were intersexual at all. They were
No.
bisexual, perhaps.
Yes.
Intersexuality is a different concept altogether. I mean, an intersexual person is a person who has been born in a way so that their anatomical and biological sex is uncertain.
Yes.
Transsexualism and bisexuality, of course, are quite different from this.
Mm.
If you said everybody was fundamentally bisexual, I would agree with you, but I can't agree with the definition of everybody being transsexual.
No,
But these are...
Yes, I don't think we want to particularly get bogged down on a medical question.
But I think it's good to clear the air about this.
Yes.
I think it's important that we do get some greater clarity. You see, because of the two problems that you've been presenting this evening, the problem of the transitional stage and the problems you engaged in during that, we have to understand why it is that there is this long transitional phase.
Yes.
And I am asserting that since, for example, it may be clear that a person who is born a hermaphrodite, who has in fact, it is endowed through some chance of nature with the sexuality of biologically of male and female. Now it's quite clear, the psychiatrist, the surgeon has to help those to find out what is their gender going to be, their sex and their gender, in that case. Then you get the pseudo-hermaphrodite, the person who is born, in fact, with perhaps male organs internally, with gonads, but whose genitalia, in fact, have defects. And I realize that the problem has to be dealt with, again, with the psychiatrist and the surgeon to help those. And then there's the other lot, many of whom demand or wish to become women, but who, in fact, it may not be good for them to become women. Feminine homosexuals,
yes,
who in fact are not, as you are pointing out,
yes,
by no means the right sort of person who should in fact have the operation. Drag queens, who in fact revel in their own maleness even while they are being drag queens. These are not the sort of people who should have. So there's got to be a sorting out period, hasn't there?
Yes.
There's got to be a waiting period. In order to make quite certain that the surgeons and the psychiatrists have really decided that before this fateful step is taken, that they're not bringing not a new role to somebody, a defined role, but they're not, make certain they're not bringing disaster. Now I think, since there has to be this period of time,
yes,
that what we've got to try to do is to make certain that the psychiatrist and the surgeons are able to assist you by being able to have an authority, as it were, to have some national health, national insurance, which will enable you during that time to live out as you must your trial as a woman.
yes.
Now you haven't got that at the moment, and that's your problem, one of your main problems you explain this time. Now I think we could, by administration, get over that difficulty, provided that it's clearly understood that you would have to submit yourself to the decision of people like the doctor to decide as to whether he thinks that this is a person who should be asked first to carry on as a woman for a time before the final decision is taken. And I should have thought, Doctor, that it should be possible for you to be able to create an administration, if the state would allow it, whereby you could tie up with Ministry of Labour and tie up with the Ministry of Insurance so that these transitional embarrassments could be overcome.
Yes, I agree with you completely, and you have put the medical problems here even much more clearly than I could put them myself. The problem of the transitional period as far as employment is concerned and living as a woman is extremely difficult.
Yes.
And it's not always easy to get cards with a change of sex indicated on them. I have known of a number of cases in which they have been recommended by psychiatrists, but then they have been vetoed by other doctors.
Personally, I can't see why a person shouldn't be able to have a card in whichever the gender they choose to live in. I can't see, for example, that anybody would wish to try to work in the opposite sex for some sort of joke or something of that sort, and they're not likely to get very far if they did. I can't really see what this blockage is about the card.
But you would be prepared to accept the fact that there would
Yes,
have
I
to
feel
be
it should be
a
given.
screening
Yes.
and surveillance period,
I feel
that the decision must belong
Yes,
to
indeed.
those people who are qualified to assist you in making it.
Yes, my feeling is this, that there should be this initial screening, if you like, but when that screening is terminated, the doctor should have the courage of his own convictions to say, give this person a card without saying to the patient, go and pretend to be a woman who has lost a card for 3 months.
Darling,
I can't really see why this has to be.
I must commit because I feel so strongly about it. I mean,
Yes.
I've gone the whole hog, right? I do still feel that, I'm laying myself open again, that this thing is such a developing thing, and I'm sure that even the medical profession are still very much in the dark about it.
Well, I rather feel, you see, that my feeling is that many medical people, in fact, lack this
Yes.
courage of their own decisions in this area.
But also
courage or knowledge?
Yes,
Offloading.
that is right. I mean, you must also
Knowledge.
accept the
Knowledge.
fact
They're
that
off-
nobody wants to do something
No.
with insufficient knowledge, and the
No.
doctors too are naturally hesitant for those reasons.
Yes.
May I come to your second problem, the problem of the post phase, as it were, after
Yes.
the operation has been done, and the question as to whether, in fact, it should be possible for you not only to marry, but for your marriage to be valid. Hmm?
Yes, yes.
Well, I think during the debate that we had in the House of Commons and the nullity bill which you mentioned, first, as far as I was concerned, I felt that if a marriage took place and they have lived together and the man, the husband, knew at the time that in fact he was marrying somebody who had a sex change,
yes.
and with his eyes open and understanding that married, then in the House I said that it shouldn't only be a question of discretion of the judge as to whether such a wife should have maintenance, but I said it should be she should have the same rights as any other wife.
Yes.
But I would be prepared to go further. I think that if the man, the husband, knowingly lives with a person who has had a sex change, I don't think it can possibly be right that when they've lived together as they may have for 10 or 20 years,
Yes.
that marriage should be ended except in exactly the same way as any other marriage should be ended, and with the same grounds. And I don't believe there should be a distinction, provided always that the full facts had been revealed in the first place. And I think that we must try to persuade the community that disturbing and uneasy, as most people are when they see you here, you know, and difficult as it is for most heterosexual men to view you without some feeling of unease, we've got to ask all to have sufficient tolerance to be able to enable you to live, as you evidently do, want to live respectably as wives with the same rights as any other wife.
Yes. I think the crux of this thing is, as far as I see it, is that it's being viewed totally and solely as a medical issue, and I don't think it is one.
I agree with
Doctors will argue what is a woman and what is a man, and I do demur, although you being a doctor, but I do feel that the very presence of nipples on the male and the atrophied womb and so on, that man is in a sense an intersex species, and transsexualism is not something that happens to a person, but what intersex people who have reached a certain point of intersexuality do about their intersexuality.
Yes.
In other words, transsexualism is a term invented by Dr. Benjamin in '56,
Yes,
a sort of misnomer. It is not something that happens to anybody.
No,
It's
no.
what you do about an extreme form of intersexuality.
Is it
Now-
what you do, or is it something that happens? It's something that you are, surely,
Well,
from the
you
very
see-
beginning, because most
Yes.
transsexuals believe that they have been
Did-
assigned to the wrong gender from a very, very early age.
Well,
But do you
listen,
not
this
think
is a
it's possible-
psychological... I never had that.
But do you not think it's possible that this is an extension of hermaphroditism?
It's a type of hermaphrodism.
Well, I
you
wouldn't,
think
I wouldn't
so?
like to enter into this
But
particular
I
discussion,
think
but
we
where
can
I
get
do
back-
It's a
agree with
stage
you,
further.
and
I'd
I'd
most
like to get back
strongly...
to this other
Could I
point.
just make one
Yes,
point,
right.
which I think is very, very important, in case you think I am
Yes.
opposed to your point of view, and that is that I think there is such a thing as psychological sex, which is
Yes,
entirely
very
distinct
important.
from anatomical, chromosomal, or endocrinological
Yes.
sex.
And all
And
these
I
other
think a person
sexes
should
are-
have the right to
Yes.
decide which psychological sex they
Yes.
would belong to, and if society would accept this, then I think the transsexual problem, the
Yes.
social aspects of it anyway,
Yes.
would be very, very largely solved.
Yes.
And I'm entirely with you.
May I
on
give,
this.
may I
This
come
goes
in
back
to
to
give you a
mine,
piece of
doesn't it?
advice?
All right.
You say, if you're talking in terms of transsexuality and you keep emphasizing that everybody really has got a lot of that, you can act as a threat to those people who want to keep, as most men do, their maleness, And indeed, perhaps you can even act as a threat to women who
Well-
want to keep their femininity. You have
No, no,
decided,
not at
whether
all.
you have decided you want a specific gender. That's what most people want.
I think
the doctor and I want to be men. You
I
want to
think
be
you-
women.
you misunderstand. No,
but you mustn't
understand.
confuse the issue.
No,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
point,
Don't you
what
think-
you have
don't
to,
tell her,
what you
darling.
have to
But don't you think a lot of
understand,
this goes back
what
to
you need
mind
to
anyway?
understand is that masculinity has quite a large degree of femininity in it. Being a man involves a feminine aspect, and being a woman involves something masculine. There
I
there's
think
something of
everybody
the
will
other
accept
sex in,
this.
in
Nobody
both
will
of us.
argue
This is, so if you say, I wish to be a man, this is not necessarily, when I'm saying we're all intersexuals, by no means implying that people feel uncertain about their sexuality or wish to be homosexual or something. Not at all. Not in that way
Well,
at all.
that is why I think
No,
you must be
not in the
careful not to
slightest.
present it.
Not in the
because
slightest.
some want to be fathers, some want to be
Well, of
wives,
course,
some want to
yes.
be mothers. Hmm?
But yes, the
And,
softness.
and we are for being fathers.
Yes, well, the softness in the father's nature is to some extent the femininity in the male, which we need, which men need.
But I think this concept of psychological sex has
Yes,
still not
very
been
important.
has not been
Yes,
accepted.
and also what is played down is the fact that these other forms of sexing, like genetic sex and chromosomal sex, are not invariable. There are not many exceptions, but there are exceptions.
Oh, there are many
in the
exceptions,
Lancet in 1959, a leading article said that there must be at least 2 soldiers of female genetic sex in every battalion in the British Army. So none of these tests are invariable.
No,
And the
nature is very,
psychological test
nature is
so
very
important.
untidy.
Yes,
And it
exact-
doesn't,
this is
it's
my
very
whole point.
untidy
This is
and
the
it doesn't
point. This is
work
what we're
as
saying.
perhaps we would
This is the
always
point.
like it to be. And I
This is
suppose therefore we
exactly
have to have laws and attitudes which acknowledge the fact that nature is untidy,
Yes.
and we've got to try to act therefore towards those who feel that nature has been very untidy with them. We've got to act with some understanding and some sympathy.
May I interrupt here? Look, this still goes back again to the point of mind being behind all matter. Because it's mind, human mind, having an understanding of these things, which again involves man-made law to decide what is
Yes.
what. It's mind power behind it all the time.
But this is just reinforcing your argument when you bring up this question of people who are who are chromosomally and
Yes.
of the opposite sex,
Yes.
and yet they
And
function
yet
in
they
the army
function
as
quite
males.
happily as
Because
males.
this is the
Yes.
imprint of masculinity
Exactly.
has been so powerful that
Yes.
despite their biological belonging
Yes.
to the feminine
Yes.
side, they
Yes.
function socially as
Yes,
males.
and
And
the
I think
state-
this is a very, very important
Yes,
concept,
and the
which
state
most
certainly
people
doesn't.
still won't accept.
Yes,
you see.
it's the male, it's the positive, negative aspects of mind.
But what I
Isn't
feel,
it?
Laura, is if we can clear this point up as we're
Yes.
getting towards the end of the programme,
Yes.
is that this question should be taken out of the medical field. The doctors will argue quite sincerely about what is a man or what is a woman till the cows come home. But what I feel, well, they probably will tend to do so. What I feel matters is that we should do as I believe they do in France. They say sex changers should have all the legal rights as women. The law doesn't have to say they are women, but they should be treated as women, because we live in a bisex society, I mean a two-sex society, where there are only men and women. These people obviously can't be regarded as men, so give them their full rights and not treat them as second-class citizens and as concubines.
That's it. Take
Treat
that
them
awful-
as
Mm.
women, and let the medics
some of the burden
argue
away from
about
us.
what they are
Yeah.
indefinitely, if you
Yeah.
like.
Because I don't think we
How do you
can
feel?
go, quite frankly, as far as that. Because if you treated them exactly as women, you would say that if a woman today marries a man, she doesn't reveal all her history necessarily to the husband. She may not tell him of past affairs. She may not tell him everything. And therefore, and nevertheless, their marriage is valid. Now, I don't think that you can have the right in the field of marriage to say that you must be treated as every other woman unless there has been full revealing of this fact. Because the basis of marriage for many people is the family.
Yes.
And
Well,
that
yes.
is impossible in these circumstances,
yes.
right?
In 71, I wrote to you on this point. I did suggest that the amendment you should put forward was on precisely those lines, that the only grounds for nullity in a sex change marriage should justly be if the partner withheld knowledge of their medical history to the husband.
Yes.
I think this is the least they could do. I think they must do
Yes,
this.
but Della,
yes, we've
may I
got
come
one
back?
more minute,
darling.
so we want a brief
very quick
comment
yes,
from
you came to the,
from,
you mentioned the point about the woman not revealing
each
her
of
past
you.
to the man, but then the same thing applies with the man, with the husband when he gets married. There could be many things that he didn't reveal.
Yes, but this is
That
very,
quite
very
right.
personal,
The
Laura.
man comes there normally believing that he's going to be a father.
Yes.
In the case of a woman who has had the sex change to make it a woman, she
then-
does not come there
but
in the
what about
capacity of being
age?
able to be a mother.
But what about age?
Just one point about women. There'll be many people very angry
we've
with
only
you
got
tonight
half a
because
minute.
the
So let's not
question
follow
of
more red herrings.
women changing to masculinity
That's true.
has not been discussed at
No,
all. What
that's
Women's
not
Lib will
true.
say about
Well,
this,
if
I
the
hate to
BBC
think
give us
tomorrow.
another programme, we'll only be too pleased to do something about that, but unfortunately we hadn't time. We did have somebody in mind, and we weren't able to bring them along. Well, I'm afraid that's it. I hope you've enjoyed watching this programme. We certainly enjoyed putting it together. We realise that a change in the law will take time. But a change in public attitudes, and perhaps a change in your attitude too, can begin tonight. And after all, it is that which is really paramount. I still feel we do need all of us to accept ourselves for what we are, members of an intersex species in a sense at least, still moving along the evolutionary path. And to do this, and to accept the changes we have suggested, would then in that case be not merely a win for us, but a win for you, for humanity, both for who it is and for what it is. Good night.
And the world will be better by far. That just one, scorned and covered with scars, still tries.